Welcome to another episode of the Why I Love America podcast. The whole purpose of our podcast is to help revitalize our patriotism here in the United States of America, to have a better understanding of our founding fathers and the Constitution, and a deeper awareness of God's hand in America. Today, our focus is going to be on the freedoms of our Constitution. And to help put this in a little bit of a perspective of why this is so important, somebody once told me that, it's not until we lose something that we really value that we fully appreciate it. And I hope that we never lose our freedoms that we have here in the country. But short of that would be to look at those who never had those freedoms, or people who didn't have those freedoms but now have them living here in America. And that's why we have a special welcome here to Gabriela Puckett, who will be spending some time with us on a couple of things. One, she's from Cuba, an immigrant from Cuba, and we want to hear her story, her and her family's story. Two, also her journey away from Cuba, eventually back to America. And then thirdly, some of her feelings that she has in terms of living in America. So a special welcome to Gabrielle.
Thank you so much.
Just glad that you're here and that you're willing to do this. And I'm anxious to find out about what it was like for you and your family to live in a communistic state like Cuba. But before we even do that, I know that there's a family associated here. You have a sibling or parents, grandparents, whatever. Tell us a little bit about your family, because they, I believe, made the journey with you.
Yeah, so in Cuba, I used to live most of my life with my grandma on my mom's side, my parents, and my sister.
Okay.
And we were able to make it here, all of us. So.
Okay. So we'll come back to grandmother here in a bit, but you all lived together in the same place. So grandma, mom and dad, and your sister. Okay.
Yeah, and it was interesting that my grandma was able to live before communism. So she would tell me stories about what Cuba used to be like before what I actually got to know of my country. And so growing up, it was very different, from the life that my grandma had growing up.
So she obviously was there, I think it was 1959 or something like that, where it kind of went to communist rule, right?
Yes.
She obviously grew up before then. Mm-hmm. You were born after that, so you had to hear a lot from grandmother in terms of what things were really like, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So if you would, share with us a little bit about what it was like to live there. I guess you lived there, until you were 18?
Almost 18.
Almost 18 years old?
Mm-hmm.
So you have probably a pretty good memory of what it was like to grow up there.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
In fact, I still have nightmares about it.
You still have nightmares about it?
Last night I had one, yeah. Living in Cuba, I was like living in a different world, in a different universe, I would say. Nothing works, and you are in a constant struggle to survive every day. It's not like living, a life. It's like surviving. We had ration cards, and it was basically a card that they used to ration our food. We were given 5 eggs per person a month, 1 piece of bread per person a day, which meant that if you had the piece of bread in the morning, then you didn't have one for school, for a snack or something, or lunch. We lived in constant blackouts. We weren't allowed to have cow meat, like beef. We weren't allowed to have fish. Even though in the ration card we had the fish line, we were giving chicken instead of fish all the time. We were never allowed to have milk after 7 years old. So once the kid turned 7 years old, we were put a red line over our names in the milk line. And just to clarify, it was powdered milk. So I never actually got to have regular milk until I left Cuba.
Now, I don't know what it was like in Cuba, but I know that I had powdered milk a little bit when I was growing up, and I thought it was horrible tasting. I don't know.
Loved it.
You loved it? Mm-hmm. Because that's probably all you had, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And well, just blackouts. Sometimes we wouldn't have any electricity for days, especially if there was a hurricane coming by or a storm, any storm. Cuba is in the middle of the Caribbean Sea, so we get a lot of storms. And so it was very common to get blackouts. And even if the sky was all blue, clear sky, we would get blackouts because it's just they didn't have oil to provide for the whole country, like energy for the whole country. So blackouts, no access to water. We would get water every other day at night. We would have to get up in the middle of the night and fill up all the bottles and tanks that we had. It's just a lack of everything.
Where did the water come from?
I'm not sure.
Okay, but it was out of the tap? Your taps?
Yeah, it came out of the tap, yeah. So we would leave the tap open, and then we would go to bed, and in the middle of the night, whenever we heard the tick-tick, the drops falling, we would go downstairs and fill up everything.
Okay, because it didn't work during the day?
No, they didn't give us water during the day. Only every other night.
Every other night?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean in terms of showers and cleanliness and what have you?
We didn't have showers. We used to bath with a bucket, so that way we could save more water. We will fill up a big tank that we had on the roof, and we would fill up the buckets and then get a bath. We sometimes couldn't bath for days if we didn't get any water at all for like weeks. We couldn't flush the toilets. If we got guests at home, we couldn't flush the toilet either, because we would have to spend more water and more people. So yeah, no washing hands after going to the bathroom. Like life is so different than living outside of Cuba, here in America, for example.
Okay. What about employment? And not that you were old enough then to work, but mom, dad, or whatever, how did that work for them?
So my mom used to be a teacher. That's what she studied for. But she used to earn $1.75 a month, which wasn't even enough to buy soap to bath with. So she quit and she became a waitress at a restaurant where there were a lot of tourists, and that way she could get tips. And my dad, he used to work in the tourist industry as well, in a hotel. And at the hotel, the tourists used to give him tips also. But also, he was able to steal toilet paper from the tourist rooms after they left. He would clean up and get all the toilet paper, shampoo, conditioner, anything that we needed at home. Sometimes he was even able to get some sandwiches that they used to give to the tourists. And he used to bring them home, and my sister and I were just so happy and so excited to eat it the next day at school because it was soft bread and with ham and cheese, and it was just delightful.
Okay. So food was rationed.
Mm-hmm.
Money that was earned by your mom and dad or whatever barely covered things, right? If they had more money, could they go and buy more food, or was the food pretty much, this is what you get?
Well, in Cuba, everybody earns in Cuban pesos, which is a currency that has no value in the world. But they have stores where they sell food in a different currency that is similar to the US dollars. Even though you never see the US dollars, your family from outside can put it in a card for you, like a debit card or something. That's something new that happened after we left. But at that time, tourists used to give us dollars, the people that work in the tourist industry, and then they could convert that into CUC, which was another currency that they had at the time. So Cuba has a lot of different currencies, and even though they get paid in Cuban pesos, when you go to a store, they sell stuff in the currency that is similar to the US American dollar. So for example, I don't know, my parents, they used to get paid in Cuban pesos, but the tourists give them the tips in US dollars, and they were able to go to the stores where they sold things in dollars and buy anything that we needed that we couldn't get with a ration card. And also buy in the black market, like powdered milk, beef, sea turtle, like the big ones. We used to eat that a lot. And anything they could find in the black markets. Yeah, but in general, people just earn pesos unless they work in a tourist area, in a tourist industry. And people always try to find a place to work at where they can get something, from. Like maybe if they work at a factory, they can steal things from there and bring them to their family or resell them in the black market. Or if they work at a school, they can steal the kids' lunch and bring it home, things like that. Always trying to find a way of being able to steal so that you can survive.
All right. So it's more about survival than kind of living.
Exactly, because the food that they gave you in the ration card, even though you have to pay it in Cuban pesos, it's not free, it's not enough. Nobody can survive with that. So once you get the stuff that they give you per month, you need to find a way to get more food somehow,
Okay. All right. What about schooling? Do you obviously had to go through some schooling or whatever, and here, when you get to a certain point in the U.S., you know that you finish with high school and then you go to college and you think about your career or whatever. What was that like, living in Cuba in terms of education or career?
Yeah, so growing up, you're always being brainwashed, that's the first thing, about how bad the U.S. are and how they're going to come and kill us and start a war with Cuba. So you grow up being scared of the U.S., and thinking that Cuba is the best country in the world, that everything outside is bad for you. So there's no point on even thinking about leaving. That's the message that they want to put in your head.
And I'm assuming that was a controlled message. I'm assuming you couldn't just get on the internet like I can and look up America and find out for yourself, right?
We didn't have internet.
You didn't have any internet?
No.
Okay.
And the books were restricted. You couldn't just buy any book you wanted, or get any book. My grandma used to have the 1989 book by George Orwell, and she lent it to a friend and they make it disappear. So we never got to see that book. I never got to read it and, things like that. So at school, your resources are very limited to know what's true and what's not. And you spend so much time at school, about 12 hours, sometimes even more. In some schools, especially in the countryside, they take you to labor camps. So I need to drink some water. Maybe we can cut.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So in the countryside, they take kids to something similar to labor camps where they have to work the land, so farm, and pick up like tomatoes or anything. And basically...
Do they pay you for that?
No.
No, you just have to go to labor camps and work.
Yes.
Did you have to do that?
I had to do it for a whole month, but they let me go back home every day. So it wasn't as bad for me. And that was because I was in Havana, in the capital, and I was in a music school. So that saved me somehow because, I was supposed to be a musician. So they had different privileges for us.
Okay. So I'm interested in the word you said, they had for us or whatever. Did you get told that you had to be a musician?
No, I chose to.
Okay.
I chose to be a musician because that way I could have... Well, first of all, I really liked it, and I was just a child. And my mom, when she saw that I had an interest in it, she was like, this is a way for you to get out of Cuba. Because once you graduate from the music school, you can do a musical contract, any other place in the world. You can travel and just stay there. Illegally, but you can do it. You can live and be free. So anyways, going back to the countryside thing, many students are sent to these labor camps to work the land for months. And then when they come back home, they are so disattached from family, you know what I mean? It's like the purpose of this communist regime is to keep kids and the youth away from their families as much as possible so that they can be taught what they want them to learn. And then when they come back home, there's almost no time to chat with the family for family time education. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really difficult. And in my case, because I was in the city and in the music school, even though I spent sometimes 12 hours gone, whenever I came back, I had my grandma there and my parents when they came back from work. And, they used to tell me what the world was like outside and that we were not free, that we really needed to leave. How
did they know that?
because my parents worked in the tourist industry.
Oh, the tourist industry.
Yes.
Okay.
And also my dad, one time he had tried to go to Germany to apply for political asylum there. But that's another story. He was sent back from the airport because my grandfather, who was a communist, told on him. So the Cuban authorities talked to the German authorities and he was sent back. He wasn't allowed to apply for asylum.
Okay.
But anyway, so once I graduated from like middle school, they brought a few careers for us to choose if we wanted to continue in the musical path or if we wanted to choose a different career. And I remember it was just, the options were so limited. It was like 3 careers for teacher, 2 careers for nurse, I don't know, 1 career for electrician, things like that, you know? And if you wanted one of those careers, but there were 2 people that had a better grade than you, they would get it. So you would have to go down to the next one. You know, it isn't about a choice. It is about what they offer to you and what you can get with your grade. It doesn't matter if you like it, if you have talent for that career, if you have skills that could help you get through it. It doesn't matter. Now, when I left Cuba, I learned that everywhere in the world, people have so many choices to learn, specifically here in America, to choose from, you know? Like you can be a chef, you can be a hairstylist, you can be, I don't know, an astronaut, you can be anything that you choose to. If you really like it, you can do it, you know? You study hard, you make it.
I'm trying to get a handle on this. You basically, and I don't know if this is a list for female and male, there's another list or whatever, but basically there was, I don't know, what, 5, 10 kind of things you could choose
10,
from?
15, yes. It was
Okay.
just 1 page long.
1 page long,
Yes.
you had to pick it, and that's what you were. For the rest of your life?
Yes.
Okay, so you couldn't change midstream and say, you know, this isn't working, I think I want to do that a little bit more.
No.
No freedom in that?
No,
Okay.
because you had to go to a specific school for it and then go to college. You know, it's like very structure. The structure is very limited, I would say.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned one thing that I wanted to get a better understanding of. Your parents, because they were in the tourist industry, knew a little bit about outside of Cuba, but for the most part, what did people get within Cuba? They didn't get the outside. They didn't have an internet. What did they get?
So we had 4 TV channels.
14 channels?
4 TV channels.
4 TV channels.
Yes, and they were all controlled by the dictatorship. There is no private industries in Cuba, private companies, so everything is controlled by them. No internet. Our family didn't have a phone for many years because we were not communist enough and we didn't deserve it. So we only had a telephone at home the last few years before we left Cuba. There was no communication.
So they didn't have
within the island or within the outside.
Okay, so we have a device, we have an iPhone or whatever that might be here. That must have been controlled. You know, that if you did have one, I don't know if they did, but they would only be able to get state-controlled or whatever information or, okay.
Yes, I remember one time someone from the U.S. came to visit. He was a Cuban, someone from our extended family, and he had an iPhone or I don't remember what brand it was. It was just a cell phone, and I was looking at it, and I saw so many apps, and I didn't know what they were. And
look, I still don't know what they are. So okay.
Well, I remember looking at them and thinking, I wish I remember the music app, and I said, I wish I could just go in there and look for this song I heard once in the radio or that I heard once at school, and I was like, I can't wait to get out of here so that I can, you know, explore of this knowledge and look up things and learn new music. Because even the music we were taught at school, it was so outdated. We couldn't learn the music that we wanted to. I developed a really good hearing too. I would listen to a song and I was able to play it in the piano and the clarinet. And I think I was forced to do that because sometimes, you know, you couldn't get the music to play it. You had to just figure it out yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask what it was like? I'm thinking about your grandmother who was prior to the 1959, the revolution. I'm assuming that when the revolution started, and through that time, that religion got booted out. I'm not sure, but tell us, if you would, about what kind of freedom did you have to worship God in any way you want?
Yeah, after I was born, religious freedom was allowed in 1997. Before that, so for about 40 years, we were not even allowed to practice, to celebrate Christmas. Many priests were killed just because they believed in Jesus Christ, and that was against the regime. Many people got killed just for saying Christ is king, things like that. My grandma wasn't able to baptize her children because she could have lost her job or something worse. It was just constant persecution. They would look at religious people like they were weirdos, they were contra-revolutionaries, against communism and all that. Now, when I was born, what I lived growing up was that people was able to finally practice religion. I heard of a couple of churches, like Jehovah's Witnesses, the Catholic Church, of course, and there was another one, I can't remember the name, that I actually visited a few times. But it was like the culture of the whole country wasn't religious. They had looked more at the Cuban African religions, which were brought by the African slaves a long time ago in the 1700s. And they didn't have to actually go to a church to practice that. They could just practice at home.
Sure.
So it was like people were putting their beliefs, living their beliefs at home, just keeping their faith within them, within their homes, and that was it. There wasn't a tradition of going outside, going to church every Sunday, of praying. It wasn't normal to hear people talking about praying or God, or those were conversations that were never had around me.
And this is
not at school,
at
nowhere.
your age, so religion was allowed. Mm-hmm. And just help me on the history lesson here a little bit. We talked about 1959. I'm assuming that's when communism kind of first stepped in and said no religion. And I'm assuming when you said 40 years, that's probably around the time
that I was born.
When you were, and that was a visit, sometime around that, a visit of the Pope.
The Pope, yeah.
And I'm assuming that what did he do? Did he kind of say, let this end, let religion be?
Yeah, he talked to Fidel Castro, the president, and he said, hey, you should probably, allow people to celebrate Christmas again. But like I said, after 40 years, so long, people didn't believe in anything. The tradition was lost. I didn't know what Christmas was. I remember once we bought a small Christmas tree and we believed we were rich because we bought that. And I remember we just wanted to play around the Christmas tree and all that. It was a tiny Christmas tree. I look at pictures now and I'm a little sad about it, because for me at that time it was like, I'm so successful right now with this Christmas tree. And it was so tiny and naked, like ugly,
Probably not a lot of presents to go with it.
No presents at all.
No presents, just a tiny little Christmas tree.
Yes, and we were so happy and so grateful about it. And we were the only ones in the neighborhood that had one. None of our neighbors had a Christmas tree. None of them. And if I remember correctly, I am pretty sure that Christmas tree, we bought it in the store where you buy with the other currency, the one that most Cubans don't have any access with because we're all paid in Cuban pesos. So
okay, so now you have Christmas a little different way, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Let me just go back here to you personally, okay? Knowing that you are a religious person, what happened? How did that, in a state where religion was forbidden, and then it wasn't practiced because people kind of forgot about it. How did religion play a role in your life? Yeah,
my grandma was very Catholic, and because she lived about 20 years before communism, she had all the tradition. She did the first communion. She did all of the Catholic Church things, and she always taught me to believe in God. She taught me that God was always watching over me, that He was always next to me, that I had to behave and be good so that I would be rewarded and blessed, So she also, of course, praying every night. She taught me, look, every night you need to talk to God. And then after you talk to God, you can say the prayers, the regular prayers from the Catholic Church. And that kind of made me, develop my faith in God. And I just grew up knowing that God was there, that he existed. I didn't understand religion. I didn't know how many religions were there. I didn't know about this world of freedom of religion where anybody can practice any belief they have, And I think it really helped me to believe in God, to see life in a more positive way. And even though we had so many struggles and so many problems, I always had faith that one day I was going to get out. And my family as well, we always had faith that we would get out, and we did.
Okay, so your grandmother, she taught you. You had that faith in God, praying every night or whatever. Mom and Dad, where were they?
No, they are from the middle generation that their parents were mostly communists or Catholics like my grandma, but couldn't practice. So they were atheists. They didn't believe,
Okay. So Gabrielle, when I think about what you said in your upbringing, very difficult, very hard, it was about survival, not about living. If it were me, just my own personality, I probably would be bothered. I'd be upset. I'd probably be talking to friends about what I didn't like. I don't know if I'd be a protester or not, but I'm just curious as to how things worked out in terms of if you had a point of view that was contrary to the way things were, or that things could get better. How did you deal with it, or could you?
Well, no, you can't. And just a few people actually get to think about talking. First of all, because you are trained to not think and just to live life as you can. And we are also taught that politics are dirty, that we shouldn't get involved in politics, that if we do that, we're going against the government, against the regime, and that is just a bad thing. So we're not taught about it, and we are not allowed to speak about it. If you have a thought and you share it with a neighbor, you are in risk that the neighbor may call the police and telling you could go to prison, you could get a lot of punishments, even if you don't go to prison. Like, they don't give you any, benefits. I say benefits, but they're just common things. Like, a phone service.
Basic things that they would take that away from you if you got caught saying something like that. Mm-hmm. I'm curious about a comment that you made here. Somebody would report you. I mean, that sounds like that's spies or something like that. I don't know. What was that like? Yeah,
so what we're taught is that we all, as Cubans, have a responsibility of taking care of the revolution. So if we hear someone saying something bad about the revolution, or we know someone doing something against it, we need to report it. But on top of that, we have some organizations in every single neighborhood of the country that are called the CDR.
CDR?
Yes, basically they're like committees of defense of the revolution. I think that's a translation. And these organizations have like a leader in every neighborhood. In the neighborhood where we used to live for about 2 years, my father's mother used to be the leader of that organization. So the communist grandma. I have the Catholic grandma and the communist grandma.
It's quite a combination.
Yes. So the communist grandma used to lead the CDR in that neighborhood, and she had a list. She used to look through the window and write down everything that she thought was suspicious, like, people gambling while playing dominoes, or someone wearing a U.S. flag in their head in a party. She would call the police on them, things like that. So I really don't understand how my grandma was able to live her whole life like that. I'm pretty sure she thought she was doing a good thing for the government, for the revolution, but I just can't understand why she would put that before her own family or any other human being. That's really hard to understand.
So if there was one of these in every neighborhood, I don't know how big that was, but people had to watch what they said. They couldn't just freely say, I got a problem with this, or I'm complaining about this. They had to be very, very careful.
Not just what they said, the music they played, what they cooked.
They cooked?
Yes. If you bought beef in the black market, you cooked it, and some neighbors smelled it, they could tell on you. They could call the police. So it was just, all your expressions are limited, you know? You don't have freedom of expression. You cannot not even cook what you want, you know? It's just so difficult.
Okay. So one of the things that I, think about when you tell me about this is that, it's obviously things are controlled by the government. Does that mean that there's no crime around? That it's controlled because you can't cross the government or whatever? I mean, were you safe? Did you feel safe where you live?
No, not at all. And there were definitely neighborhoods that were very, very dangerous. But you can find crimes anywhere. We are not allowed to own guns in Cuba.
No guns.
Only the government can have them. Sometimes they give a gun to one person in the neighborhood or in the city, just to take care of any counter-revolutionary activity. And those are hidden, so nobody knows who is this spy. We don't know who has the gun. So, but yeah, in general, nobody can have guns. Nobody can buy guns. If you're found with a gun, you go to jail. Straight to jail, like that video says. So, even though the government is the only one that have the guns, we are not protected because people still commit crimes with bats, with stones, with knives, with a table, with anything. They kill each other with anything they have around them. And the justice system is so messed up. You can bribe the judge, you can bribe the attorneys, and just get away with anything. So almost never there is justice done. Criminals are so easy to get away with anything, also because they don't have the government doesn't have the tools to find who they are. It's not like CSI or anything like that.
Okay, so not a particularly safe place to live.
Not at all. I feel so safe here in America, even though I know that you may have a gun right now. Anybody around me can have a gun, and I feel so safe. And I know if someone would try to do something to me, and another person sees it, they can defend me, or I can defend myself if I have the gun with myself,
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you grew up in this environment where, things were it was just difficult to live. Not a lot of food, black market to take care of some needs or whatever. No real religion that existed, no, gun rights, no being able to speak up, whatever type of thing, and share your thoughts. Okay, so we get to a point where through the help of your parents and kind of the tourist industry, whatever, you were learning about what was on the outside. What happened? Tell us about the journey. There was obviously a journey to get and flee away from Cuba and I guess through Spain and then to the U.S. Tell us about your journey for you and your family.
Yeah, so for years, my parents were finding ways to get out of Cuba. We just couldn't find one. We knew the U.S. had a policy for Cubans that was called the dry feet, wet feet policy. And basically, if you were Cuban and you got to the U.S. and you were caught by the authorities in dry land with dry feet, you could stay legally. Now, the problem was how to get out of Cuba. That was the problem.
So if they caught you, let me make sure I understand this policy. This was a U.S. policy.
Yes.
Wet feet, dry feet?
Yes.
Okay, and if they caught you, because I think I remember watching this on the news, if they caught you in a big boat trying to escape from Cuba, they would consider that, and they caught you in the boat, that would be wet feet,
yes.
right?
You would be sent back
to Cuba. Okay.
Yeah. And that would be hell because they would persecute you in Cuba. It was pure persecution, so it was a big risk.
Okay.
But also at the point of escaping, if the Cuban authorities saw you, they would just shoot at you and kill you.
Okay. So obviously the goal was dry feet. And I don't know how that's all done. That obviously some planning and some luck and some guidance from,
yes,
divine help.
Yes. Like I said, my dad tried going to Germany first when we were little that didn't turn out well because of the communists that told on us. And then we tried through Canada. Canada had a program some time ago where they would allow immigrants to go there, and they would even help them with money and things. We couldn't get enough money to make it out. And then we found out that we had a great-grandfather from Spain. He had come to Cuba during the civil war in Spain, so he was escaping from the war. And we found out that the Spanish embassy would let us become Spaniards because of the blood lineage. So we just did the process. It took years, and then once we became Spaniard citizens, we got our Spaniard passport, we bought the ticket, and we were finally free to leave as Spaniards.
Just like that?
Yes.
Cuba couldn't hold you because you had the passport?
Yes, all correct.
Right. And then assuming, obviously, you had the money for all of you. Now, did you all go, or was it just you?
My mom and my dad had to borrow money from friends, from their bosses, they just put together a bunch of borrowed money from everybody because there wasn't one person that could give them all the money that they needed to buy the tickets. So they borrowed enough money to buy the tickets. Once they got out, they just started from zero there, just trying to find an apartment, jobs, everything. And it took them about 2 years to finally be stable enough and for us to get all the paperwork done, my sister and I. And we were finally able to go to Spain, be there for another couple years until my dad became a Spaniard citizen. Because I hadn't told you this, but it was my mom that became a Spaniard citizen first. My dad was just the husband of the Spaniard. So it was complicated. It was so complicated.
But your dad wanted to go. He wanted to flee.
Yes, but how could he go from Cuba to the U.S. without the Spaniard passport? He couldn't because he was just a Cuban.
Ah, I see. Okay.
So they had to go to Spain first. My dad had to wait a total of 4 years in Spain to get his Spaniard citizenship. And at the time, my sister and I were already in Spain. We all were Spaniards now, except for my Catholic grandma. So we designed the perfect plan.
Was she able to get out? Was she able to go with you?
To Spain, yes.
Yes.
Because she was accompanying me and my sister.
Oh, I see.
She was going with us to Spain. We were minors.
And was that when you were allowed to go to Spain, was that for as long as you wanted to live there, or did you only get a travel visa? Or
my grandma got something like a travel visa because she was not a Spaniard. She was just helping me and my sister get there because we were minors, and she was the grandma and the mother of the Spaniard citizen. That was my mom. But my sister and I, because we were already Spaniards, we could stay there forever if we wanted to.
Okay.
Right? But now, once my dad got the Spaniard citizenship, the plan was never to stay in Spain. Never. We didn't.
Even with your Spaniard background, whatever?
Yeah, no.
Why not?
Well, first of all, there was no way for my grandma to become a Spaniard citizen there.
Okay.
Or get any paperwork, not even health insurance. Even though, we were thinking, well, we didn't even gonna try to make her a Spaniard citizen yet, but we want to get her health insurance. It was almost impossible. Everything was so difficult, and just the social programs that Spain had. Spain is very socialist, and we saw a lot of things that reminded us of Cuba. We couldn't start a business easily, no matter how hard my mom worked. She didn't get enough money. My dad couldn't find a job. One time he worked for 3 months, and they didn't pay him because they didn't have money. So the economy in Spain is socialist, and it's so bad. It's so bad. So definitely Spain was not the answer for us. If we got out of Cuba, we wanted to be completely free, And if we had already taken such a big step, being separated for a while, we were willing to do anything it took to be completely free. So once my dad got his Spaniard citizenship, we designed the perfect plan, which was going back to Cuba, but buying the ticket from Cuba back to Spain so that the Spaniards would think that we would go back to Spain.
Oh, so you bought a round trip.
Yes.
From Spain to Cuba back to Spain. Okay.
Yes, because we had friends and people we knew that were Cubans, and they tried going from Madrid, Spain to the U.S., and they were not allowed to do that because Spain knew that they had the dry feet, wet feet policy here in America, and that the Cubans were going to stay. So I guess there was a pact between the two countries, America and Spain. I don't understand why, but many Cubans were not allowed to just travel here with no return to Spain. So we bought the ticket, just to be safe, from Spain to Cuba, and then from Cuba back to Spain.
And you didn't think that Cuba was going to get on your case
Yes.
or stop you or, arrest
Yes.
you or anything like that?
We were very scared, not for us because we were already Spaniards. We had our Spanish citizenship,
okay.
but because of my grandma.
Ah, that's right, because she didn't have that background. Okay.
Yeah. But she was fine, because she never had a political situation in Cuba. She was fine about that. But anyways, we went back to Cuba, and then in Cuba we spent about a week. Then we bought a ticket, round trip as well, from Cuba to Miami, Miami to Cuba.
Oh, okay. Because
Right.
you could do that now as a Spaniard. You
Yes.
could do that to go to the U.S. and then come back.
Yes, but we didn't want them to think that we were just going from Cuba to Miami to the U.S. and just stay there, because we were scared that they could retain us or something.
Okay. Obviously, you had to gather up more money from friends and neighbors, right?
Once we were in Spain, my parents were able to work, and then we sold things and we figured it out how to
Okay.
buy the tickets.
Okay.
Now, when we got to Miami, that's when we had no money or anything. We were very, very poor when we got there. Anyways, we made it to the U.S. We had to leave Grandma behind in Cuba. That was the toughest part because she had already gotten used to living in Spain, eating oranges and fruit and all the nice things. But we couldn't bring her here. There was no way for us to bring her here.
So she got left behind then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, how was that?
Sorry.
It's okay. Take your time.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, so
Not easy. Grandmother had to stay behind.
yeah, it was really hard, because we felt guilty of leaving her behind and just make her go through everything again, blackouts and just the bad life in Cuba. But she said that, I'm old, I already lived my life. I'm happy and grateful that you can leave and be free. So just do it and I'll be happy and thankful for that. Still, not easy.
Yeah.
When we met here, we got to the airport and we showed our Spanish passports and our Cuban passports. We said, look, we came as Spaniards, but we're Cubans. And we went to get the drive-free wet feet policy. And they just smiled at us and said, welcome to the United States. And we were just crying and just so happy, because after all the trouble we had been through and being so scared that other governments wouldn't allow us to be free, once we got here, it was like a release. They didn't even know us. They didn't know who we were, and they were just so welcoming and willing to give us an opportunity. Sorry. Sorry.
It's okay. So you came here, you got settled. Guess you stayed in Miami, I guess.
Yeah, so when we got to Miami, we didn't know many people there. We had some friends here and there. We had an uncle that we weren't very close to at that time. And we didn't have anywhere to go. So my mom called this friend that used to work at the restaurant with her in Cuba and said, hey, I know you got there about a month ago. How are you doing? How you did this? How you rent out an apartment? He said, this is what I did. And guess what? You can come and stay with me for a month. He was living in a small studio. He had just been here for like a month. And he allowed us to go there and stay with him. So at the airport, we spent about 10 hours being interrogated, my parents. and just waiting for the paperwork to be done, all the background checks and all that. And once we got all that done, we left that little room, and it was all dark outside. We didn't have US dollars to, make phone calls or get a taxi, nothing. So I remember there was a lady there that said, "Hey, I overheard you're talking about sleeping here at the airport tonight. No, I'm not going to allow you to do that. You're coming home with me." So that's when we started seeing miracles after miracles about how easy things were here and how people could just help you, Because even though they were not rich and they were not super wealthy, they had the ability to help you,
Yeah.
And the willingness, because people were not selfish anymore. They didn't have to think about themselves. They could think about other people. And anyways, that night we didn't have to go there with that lady, but it's something we remember. We were able to pay a taxi with euros that we were bringing from Spain, and we got to our friend's studio. It was very small. It was like this room. It was my parents, my sister, this friend, and me, all living there for a month. In 1 month, we were all able to find jobs. Even my sister and I were babysitting and find an apartment and just go and rent ourselves an apartment and start getting on our feet, find better jobs after a few months, and just life started getting better and better and better, something that we never saw in Spain, even though we were Spaniards.
Yeah.
Here we were in the process of getting our green card. We just had a work permit, that was it, and the social security, but we were not even green card holders yet, and we were already so blessed and so grateful for this country, for all the opportunities that we were getting, just working. I started going to school, to an English class, learning English. Then I started doing the GED, which is like the high school diploma that I do.
Yeah.
And that's because I did half of high school in Cuba, half in Spain. Then my degree from high school in Spain wasn't getting here on time, and I really wanted to go to college here. So I was like, I'm just going to do the GED, which is 3 months. I'll get my certificate, and I'll go to college. And it was just, everything was so easy, So simple.
So when you think, and you've been here in the United States for how long? 6 years, 8 years?
Almost 10 years.
Almost
9 years.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So how would you summarize it? When you think about what you didn't have in Cuba and what you have now, how would you summarize? What are some of those freedoms that really stand out for you?
To me, it summarizes in the freedom to be. The freedom to be, to go out, to go where you want to go, travel where you want to travel, eat what you want to eat, buy a gun if you want to, learn what you want to learn, get in your computer, buy the book you want to buy, get the information that you choose to get, not what they choose you or what they want you to see, And it's just everything. Everything. How people are so free to just start a business. Any business. Anything can be a business.
And I'm assuming that freedom of religion means something to you now here as well.
Of course, yes. I practice religion. I'm a Christian, and I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I am able to go to church. I'm able to pray. And I'm just so happy that religion is part of my life, I feel like that has really helped me to stay positive in the hardest moments,
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, as a maybe last request from you, this has been amazing. What counsel or what messages would you have for those of us who have lived here all these years, our whole life? What would you say to us that might be useful for us to be thinking about?
Yeah, I get asked this question a lot, actually. And I always think, why can't people just go outside, look at the sky, look at the American flag just flying there, and just think about the freedom that you have here? Just breathe the freedom in the air. That's what I always say. Because literally you can be driving your car, walking, or doing anything outside, and you can get to understand that you're here. You are in a free land. You have everything. And it doesn't matter how hard life is right now. Tomorrow, you have a chance to make it better. or you have a chance for someone to help you to make it better. There is always a possibility. There is no end, to the possibilities, and you have no walls in front of you that prevent you from getting where you want to get. So I would say just try to learn more about the outside, what's going on outside of the U.S. History is very important so it doesn't repeat itself. And just appreciating what you have here. Everything from this bottle of water that I was never able to drink in Cuba to anything,
That's great.
Yeah.
Gabriel, this has been amazing. I have to admit, when you say that this is how I was brought up, it's hard for me to fully appreciate or to visualize what it means not to have food, what it means not to have electricity, what it means to be spied on if you say anything. So it gives certainly a better, gives me a better understanding for the freedoms that we do have, an appreciation for the freedoms that we do have. And I think that's why we wanted to talk to you, is to get a better feel for that. We hope that we never lose these freedoms here in the U.S., but to hear your story, to hear what you didn't have and what you have now and how you feel about your freedoms was really important to us. So we're grateful for that. I wanted to just share one last thought here. This is a book that I was reading recently. It's called The World Without America by Ted Stewart, who is a New York Times bestselling author. He wrote this book, A World Without America. And to your point about kind of looking back at history and making sure that history doesn't repeat itself, in the opening part of the book, I was really taken back by something that was there where he talked about, this is kind of sobering to me, but he was talking about some of the historical facts that we should never forget. One of them, I'll just read a couple of them. A historical fact that the vast majority of people who have lived on this earth have lived under tyranny. Second historical fact, that most people who have lived on this earth have been under the unfettered dominion of one ruler or a handful of rulers. It is a historical fact that the vast majority of people who have lived on this earth have been at risk of being owned by another person. And lastly, it is a historical fact that most people who have lived on the earth did not and do not have the gift of self-government and political liberty. So when you add your story of Cuba and fleeing Cuba and being here in the United States, and then you put this together here, it's not just now, that we have the freedoms now, but many, many people who have lived in this world never had what we have here in the United States. So hopefully our conversation with you and what we've just shared here with you today is something that would help you, help me, have a greater appreciation when we ask the question, why do I love America? Thanks for joining us.